Hook 015s, 64%. That's the number of workers who are still, technically, engaged at their jobs, which means over a third of the entire working world has already quietly left. They're still sitting at the desk, still taking the calls, still nodding in the meetings, but something inside them shut off. And nobody in charge seems to want to talk about why. Tension 15 to 60s. Here's the thing that should bother you. This isn't a new trend. Burnout has been climbing for years. We've had the articles, the TED Talks, the mental health days, the meditation apps companies installed right next to the 60-hour work week, and the number still dropped. Engagement didn't recover after the pandemic. It didn't recover after the Great Resignation. It didn't recover after every CEO sent that carefully worded all-hands email about psychological safety and bringing your whole self to work. It kept going down. So either we don't understand what's actually breaking people, or someone, somewhere, understands it perfectly and has decided that fixing it isn't worth the cost. That second option? That's the one we need to talk about. Body. Let's start with what burnout actually is. Because most people think burnout means being tired. It doesn't. The World Health Organization classifies burnout as a syndrome resulting from chronic workplace stress that hasn't been successfully managed. And it has 3 specific dimensions. Exhaustion, yes, but also cynicism. And a reduced sense of professional efficacy. That last one is the dangerous one. Exhaustion, you can sleep off. Cynicism, you can push through. But when someone loses their sense that what they do actually matters, that's not a bad week. That's a psychological exit from the entire system. And that's what 36% of the workforce is currently experiencing. Now here's the first question I want to hold on to for a second. Why now? Why is this happening at this specific scale in 2026 when we have more flexibility, more remote work options, more wellness benefits than any workforce in history? We'll get to that. But first, let's understand the machinery. There's a concept in organizational psychology called the job demands resources model. The idea is simple. Every job comes with demands, pressure, deadlines, emotional labor, cognitive load. And every job should come with resources to meet those demands: autonomy, support, clear feedback, fair pay, a sense of purpose. When demands consistently outpace resources, burnout is the mathematical result. It's not weakness. It's not a personal failing. It's an equation going out of balance. And here's what the data from 2026 keeps showing. The demands have never been higher. AI tools were supposed to reduce workload. Instead, they reduced headcount and increased the expected output of the people who stayed. Fewer people, same work. Plus the constant anxiety of wondering if you're next. The resources, they didn't scale with the demands. They stayed the same, or got worse. So when a manager sends a Slack message at 9 p.m. and expects a response by morning, that's not just rudeness. That's a demand without a resource. There's no protection for your time, no boundary with teeth. Just an invisible expectation that your life belongs to the job whenever the job needs it. And most people don't quit. They absorb it, quietly, for months, for years, until they check out. Now, about that question I was holding. Why 2026 specifically? Because something shifted in the psychological contract between workers and employers, and it happened fast. The psychological contract isn't a legal document. You never signed it. But it's real. It's the unspoken agreement about what you give and what you get in return. You give loyalty, effort, identity. The company gives security, meaning, a future. For a long time, that deal felt stable enough. Not perfect, but stable. Then came the mass layoffs of 2023 and 2024. Then the return to office mandates that felt less like collaboration and more like a performance of control. Then the AI announcements. Not the quiet internal memos, the public ones. The ones where business leaders talked openly about replacing roles, reducing teams, automating judgment. Workers heard that. And something broke. Not dramatically, not in a way that shows up in a resignation letter. Just quietly. The effort dialed back. The emotional investment withdrew. The part of them that used to care about the company's mission looked at the company's behavior and said, "No, I don't think so." This is what psychologists call disengagement as self-protection. You can't be betrayed by something you never believed in, so people stopped believing. And here's where it gets uncomfortable. Because the conventional business response to low engagement is more surveys, more town halls, more pizza Fridays, more chief people officers writing LinkedIn posts about trust and belonging. And none of it works, because it's treating the symptom like it's the disease. The disease is that the system extracted maximum value from workers during the most psychologically vulnerable period most of them have ever lived through: a global pandemic, an economic shock, a social unraveling, and then told them to be grateful they still had a job. Gratitude has a limit. And for a third of the workforce, that limit has been reached. There's one more piece of this that almost nobody talks about. Burnout isn't evenly distributed. The people most likely to be burned out aren't the disengaged ones. They already left emotionally. The people most at risk are the ones who still care the most. The high performers, the ones who said yes to every project. The ones who internalized the company's values as their own values. The ones who believed. Because when those people finally hit the wall, it's not just fatigue, it's identity collapse. They built part of who they are around what they do. And when the job fails to hold up its end of the psychological contract, it's not just a disappointment, it's a grief. That's why burnout recovery takes so long. You're not just recovering from overwork, you're rebuilding a self. Climax. Here is the central insight that I think explains everything we've been looking at. Burnout isn't a personal failure or a productivity problem. It is a signal. It is your nervous system telling you that the exchange you're making, your time, your energy, your attention, your identity, for what you're receiving in return, is no longer a fair trade. And the reason nobody wants to name that clearly is because naming it clearly makes it a structural problem, a design problem, a problem that would require companies to actually change how they operate, not just how they talk about operating. So instead, we medicalize it. We make it a wellness issue. We give workers an app and a hotline and a day off, and we send them back into the same machine that broke them in the first place. And the number keeps dropping. Ending. 64% engaged. Think about what that means at scale. Most of the people building your software, teaching your kids, running your supply chains, answering your support tickets, they are physically present and psychologically somewhere else entirely. Not because they're lazy, not because this generation doesn't work hard, but because the system asked too much, gave too little, and then acted confused when people stopped pretending everything was fine. The most radical thing you can do in an economy built on your exhaustion is take your own limits seriously. Not as a lifestyle choice, as an act of clarity. Because here's the thing, nobody tells you. The machine doesn't care if you burn out. It will find someone else. The only person who needs to care about your limits is you. And maybe that's the first honest thing anyone in this conversation has said out loud.